What else am I running? Oh, and I've also got the equipment condition to the left of the fill level. You can see that my Fendt is at 90% condition, the Kubota sprayer is at 74%, and the sensor is at 100%. So that gives me an easy look. Anything that's attached to the vehicle I am in will list exactly what its condition is, whereas the maintenance bar to the right of the speedometer is all that's telling me is the aggregate average of all the bits of equipment. So they average out to about 83%, I would guess. Downside of canola is, while it doesn't use a lot of seed to be planted, it does require a very high nitrogen level, which is why we're chewing through this stuff like nobody's business. But, we will get this field done. Well, we'll try. I missed a bit. Anything else we can see here? I don't think we can actually see much of a case of things here. I do like some quality of life mods. So things like the time in the top right hand corner, the damage modifier or monitor, and the vehicle inspector. Very, very handy. Vehicle inspector is also useful in multiplayer because you can see who's doing what, and maybe if you're playing a multiplayer harvest, you can see else we need more carts, we need fewer carts, you know, that type of thing. You know what everybody's doing and where. Obviously at the moment it's just me driving one tractor, so there's not much to check on. I also have GPS guidance steering. That is not fitted to this tractor, but as I said earlier, I will be fitting it to this tractor at some point. And then a lot of the rest of the stuff is interesting vehicle and equipment mods to just fill out, you know, the vehicle roster. There's one of the things I've said here is I don't really want to use semi-trucks because they're just too big for the lanes. You're just going to get tied up on hedges and collisions with vehicles, and it's just difficult. A couple of bits we missed there, and that's a good angle. We're not using the full side of the boom. It's actually the weed detectors that are controlling which nozzles are on. So where we're this side of the boom, that ground is already detected as fertilized. It will turn the sprayer off as opposed to just adjusting the rate, which is what base game does. There we go. And the advantage with that is I don't need to use the partial width, which was provided with this version of FarmSim. And initially I did like the idea of using the partial width adjustment, so you weren't spraying the full width at a constant rate. But as I said, once you've got weed sensors on your sprayer, it just works. You know, it takes care of everything, and visually it makes things look a little bit more realistic. If I didn't have the weed sensors, it still adjusts the flow and no nitrogen to the ends because we're not spraying that far out. But visually you will see the spray all the way to the ends of the booms if I didn't have the weed sensors on. So how did that do? That used 12% of the tank. It's actually not too bad. So yes, full nitrogen levels on this field. And as we can now see, we're still 10% low on the expected yield, but that's potentially because the expected, or the pH is low. I'm also planning to put a couple of beehives on this field when I can afford to. That will increase the yield as well. So I want to lift it, fold it, go. But a lot of the time I do use base equipment, but there are some things I don't. So those carts are a mod. They're actually a mod pack. They're very expensive, but they came up in sales separately, so I decided, yes, I want a cart, I need a cart, I'll buy that one because it happens to be cheaper. Oops. And those carts have fit our vehicles very, very well. Very happy with their use. Other things we are using. I guess we'll get to the other yard and I'll pull up our equipment list. I'm not going to go through all of the vehicle mods that I've got potentially added. Oh, there's one. Field service trailer. I've used that since Farm Sim 17. Very useful thing. So our equipment is that we have base game 700. I think the base game 8R. Yeah. Harvester, base game Trion. Skid steers. We have skid steer loader New Holland mod pack. So we picked up that. I've got the skid steer loader 711 pack, which is a Massey Ferguson, and I don't actually have a roof on mine, so health and safety are probably not too happy with me. Forklifts, we've got the Teletruck. Love this thing. It's basically a I can't remember what it's classed as. Front load? No, it's not a front loader. Is it a skid steer? It's a skid steer. So, no, that's a teleskid. Where's the Teletruck? Forklift? It's a forklift. So this thing is classed as a forklift. Steering rear axle. It uses skid steer front mounted stuff, and it has a telescopic boom. And the pivot is at the back. We could actually jump to one quickly. So probably have to start the engine up. Oh, that's one of the skid steers. Okay. Oh man, where is it? That's a Teletruck. So boom on the right, but you can boom out a bit. So it's a little bit more usable than a forklift. I like them, and they're fairly cheap, and they both came up on sale, so we have those. And as I said, they use skid steer attachments, so you can put bale spikes and shovels on them. Cars, we have TLX 2020 and a Land Rover under a different name. The two trailers are the La Campagna pack, and I like them. And they, when you don't paint them, they look good too. So we've got standard. We've got Kubota equipment pack, which comes with a load of bits. Standard. I have a manure spreader, which is from the Roland pack. Roland pack's quite nice as well. My gripe with the Roland pack is Roland equipment is freakishly expensive, but when it comes up in a sale, it's worth it. Base game slurry tanks. Kubota equipment pack mowers. Tedders. That was a base game one. Okay. Vermeer expansion. I have the Deutz balers. I do like that one. Roland pack for that. I've got a 3-point lizard bale spike, which fits to 3-point. That fits to your 3-point link. So you put that on the back and spike bales with it. Anderson bale wrapper, chainsaw, forestry equipment. Not sure I've got much in the way of forestry equipment though. Base game. Game. Quickie bale tools. I prefer a single spike to the base game double spike, and I've also got a stone shovel for what it's worth. Skid steer loaders. That came with the 7-11 pack, so it matches our Massey Ferguson. I think those are base game. Those are base game. Weights. Oh, safety weights. I've got a safety weight, so it's got the wings on it, so you can push stuff out the way. And then in miscellaneous, we've got precision farming, field service trailer, and the TLX box on the back. I think you can actually look at. So I've got Antonio Carrera. Probably never going to use any of that. Govil. I'm not going to use that. The Kubota pack is the Kubota DLC. Winch tractors, platinum expansion. What was that? That's all the that. Vermeer, we have. I did use that. I wasn't very impressed with that. I'm using that. That's good. That's all I've really used from Vermeer. Sarmac, Echo harvesters. Obviously the CSE pack. This is the pack of. Is this the pack of hose? Yeah, this is the pack of hose. And a subsoiler. What other stuff do I... there's the Kubota equipment pack. So the Kubota equipment pack contains one of those, a front mower, double single, double rear, tedder, a windrower, a big windrower, a fast bale, which is the same as the Vicon fast bale, you just attach it to the back and drive. Spreader, sprayers, trailed sprayer, cultivator, plough, planter, and seeder. So, and those you'll all find as Vicon equipment from Farm Sim 19. I do have a milk truck, the TGS, no, bale tools, lots of things. These are all the equipment thing. Oh, I've got a 0-turn mower. I should buy one of those. The grass in my yard is growing big. Anyway, let us get back to spraying our fields, which I think is the big one plus the grass field. So I'll do the grass field first. Lower that. Unfold it. Unfold. Ooh. Now, grass is not too much of a bother. And one of the reasons is doesn't need a very high nitrogen content. You can see where we were doing the canola, that nitrogen level was dark green, and this is orange, much lower. So as I was pointing out, canola is a very, very efficient crop to plant. It uses the least amount of seeds outside of oilseed radish, which you can't make money from. But when it comes to fertilizing it with precision farming, it needs a lot of nitrogen. So what you save in seed, you lose in fertilization costs. So it turns out probably the best starting crop if you're using precision farming is going to be soybeans, because soybeans couldn't give a rat's about how much nitrogen's in the soil. So you don't have to fertilize them. And so it's just the seed use, and they use a little bit more seeds than canola, but not significant amounts. So startup cost-wise, you know, maybe you want to think about soybeans as your starting crop. They sell well too. The downside is playing with seasons. Your best price is going to be June, so you're pretty much holding them in silos for 11 months until the best sell price happens, which sometimes when you're starting up, you need the money right away. Oh, and of course the big mod is this is Maypole Farm. We're playing hard mode, so I didn't start with a lot of money, and I got to pick my starting yard as opposed to New Farmer where you're assigned equipment and farm. I do hope this sensor's working and I haven't completely messed things up. What else do... Oh yes, gotta keep an eye on the clock, because 10 o'clock it's supposed to rain. Oh, watching Tom Pemberton this week and his Friday video. He's bought himself a no-frill sprayer. Like, you have to get out the tractor and unfold the arms. No frills. And you have to reach out the back window of the tractor to turn it on. But the entire kit cost him less than £2,000, he was saying, and it would cost him $500 to get one where you had a switch in the cab to unfold the arms and turn it on. So hey, 500 quid saved. And he's not spreading fertilizer or herbicide, he's spreading microbes that pull nitrogen out of the atmosphere into the ground and thus benefit his grass. At least that's the theory. So his dad has gone out and sprayed this stuff on the fields, and they're going to see how much better the grass growth in the areas where they've sprayed is. It also turns out, obviously, I'm not a farmer, I don't know how all the farming things work, but apparently you need to be licensed to use a sprayer in the UK. Unless you're very old and you've been farming for many, many years, in which case you're grandfathered in and it's assumed that you know what you're doing because you've been doing it for the last 50 years. Kind of like my grandmother. My grandmother never took a driving test. And has the lowest class of HGV license you can get. Now she's 97 years old, so not really driving much these days. But she was, in her time, license to drive an HGV vehicle without taking a test because she drove trucks for the Home Guard during the Second World War when the Blitz was happening in London. And so at the end of that time, the UK government basically said, yeah, we figure everyone should have a license to drive, but if you've been driving during the Second World War to any great extent, you're grandfathered in. We assume you know how to drive, you won't need to take a test. So she never took a driving test. So apparently if you're a very old farmer in the UK, you can buy spaying equipment and it's no big bother. But if you're young like Tom, he has to go and take a 3-day course on how to spray stuff. Although theoretically, because he's not spraying chemicals, he'd be spraying microbes, he might be allowed to do that without a license. But, you know, someone's going to see him spraying a field and they're going to look him up and say, oh, he doesn't have a license to use a sprayer, we need to go around and investigate. It's just easier to have a spraying license even if you don't actually have one for what you are doing. I mean, it's kind of like having a drone. I could go and buy a drone and I could fly anywhere I wanted to without a license, and yeah, that's a thing. However, if I want to take video and put it out on my YouTube channel, I need a license, because at that point it's classed as a commercial enterprise, and you have to have a license to do that with. So the thing is if I'm going to take my drone to places where there are things of interest, maybe I should get myself a drone license just so that I can just say, yeah, I've got a license to do this here, you know, to fly a drone. As opposed to getting questioned, oh, you're not allowed to use, you know, video photography from a drone in this location. It's for personal use. Prove it. Just, here's my license. Go away. I guess I am going to get feedback about how effective this is for the environmental score when we cut this field next month. So possibly our plan is to November 1 we'll cut this grass field and review what the environmental score is on it, just to make sure it's counting as sprayed with crop sensors. And we'll be able to see that if we'll check that at the end of automatic, and so environmental score. Our environmental score is 29. Our nitrogen is poor. Our pH is poor. But if I look at this field here, this field is currently 98. When I cut it, if the nitrogen drops by any significant amount, that means that the crop sensors aren't working. So this will be a good thing. This field is 99. And this field is 99, which means they were pretty much perfect when we harvested them last year. And that's really what we're looking at here, is getting the fields as good as they can get. So if this crop sensor is working, then those fields should stay about 99%, or at least the fertilization, the nitrogen levels should remain perfect. But some of the fields, we can go back there, some of the fields are really bad. This one we bought in the middle of the field, it wasn't limed. Sorry, in the middle of the year. It was planted, it wasn't limed, so we lost out there. This one is 100% because we bought it and we've done everything we need to it. This one, I think I forgot, I seriously forgot nitrogen on it, which is why it's so bad. This one down here, again, missed the nitrogen last year. And I think I was really stupid. I just completely forgot to go out on a couple of the fields and spray them. And the nitrogen was good enough because I'd spread manure on the fields to at least take the edge off. But it wasn't ideal, it wasn't perfect. It was just kind of close. So, bit of a mess up there. So this year I'm trying to make sure we do everything. We've got every field got mulched this year. Every field got rolled this year. Last year I didn't have a roller until the last 3 fields. And then a couple of the fields I just completely forgot to mulch. And I was seeding them and thought, oh darn, I didn't mulch this thing. Too late. So I'm trying to be a little bit more fastidious about what I do and when I do it, so that we get everything that needs to be done in a timely manner. With grass fields, you have to treat them more frequently. You're going to mow a grass field 3-4 times in a year, which means the lime levels, pH levels in the grass are going to decay. Every time you cut it, you're going to need to add fertilizer of some type. And that is about as good as it gets, I think.